Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is David with Gollivan Property Services. We are a local landscaping company in Snohomish County, Washington. And today I'd like to talk about this current project we have. We're doing blackberry mulching in this flower bed. And sometimes one question I often get, not sometimes, but one question I do often get is, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Hey, you left this. Hey, you left that. In this case, in this video, you might be thinking, hey, you're cutting down on the brush, but you're leaving the ivy. And as most people say, the blackberries grow back, the ivy grows back. In this case, this specific customer, they wanted just the blackberries and a few other saplings and a few other dead shrubs cut down. They're okay with that. But my point is that before I start any single project, no matter what it is, whether it's mowing a lawn, weeding a flower bed, cleaning somebody's roof, doing some kind of hardscape project, I always talk with my customers and I always try to understand what they want and what they don't want. In this case, we did a walkthrough with the customer. He is a viewer, so if you're watching this video, Lee, I guess hi. Yeah, so one thing I do is I go around and I talk with my customers about the project. In this case, we talked about the ivy. He wanted to keep some of it. I mentioned that when I'm going to be doing the cutting motion, as you see, I'm going up and down, up and down. When I do this, it's inevitable that I'm going to cut some of the blackberries or some of the ivy. You're going to hit it, you're going to touch it. You can't go, it's not something that you can avoid. And so I do mention that. In this case, he wanted to keep some of it. I was like, hey, when I'm going to be swinging, I'm going to cut a little bit of ivy. And he was perfectly fine with that. So one thing I always try to do is I try to set expectations and I always try to understand what the customer wants. And when you are doing an area like this, where you have a mixture of ivy and a mixture of, I guess, the blackberries, one common issue that I've run into in my experience is usually there's something hidden within these areas. In the case of ivy, there's usually some kind of rock, some kind of boulders. And the thing is that when you're mowing it full speed on, when you're going into a job with the expectation that you want to do it as efficiently as possible, but at the same time producing a quality result, you want to look out for obstacles. You want to look out for things like big old stumps or specifically rocks or boulders. In this case, while I'm doing it, if I have the mulching blade, it's a metal blade, if I hit a rock or if I hit something hard enough, what could end up happening is that I could damage my blade. That's minus $25 out of my pocket. If you damage the blade bad enough to the point where it knocks off the balance seriously, like it might chip the blade, the tooth, it might do some other damage to it, that blade is worthless. The other thing that could happen in some cases is if the blade has some kind of defect in it, let's say it has a slight crack where the flat part of the blade meets the tooth, sometimes that tooth, it could break off. And so if you think about it, you're cutting these blackberries, you're cutting this ivy, you're just cutting this, and as I'm doing it, I'm running my brush cutter full go. I'm full gas, full throttle, I'm going at it. So that trimmer head or that metal blade is literally spinning at, I don't know, I think it might be like several thousand rotations per minute or something like that. It's going fast. And imagine you're spinning that, you hit a rock, your blade has a little bit of defect, that tooth is breaking and it's flying off. And the reason I know about this is I've personally had this happen to me once, but I've also had this happen to one of my friends. He was doing kind of the same thing, except he was kind of doing some heavier vegetation. It wasn't necessarily blackberries. He had a lot of saplings in there. He had a lot of various growth. So he was kind of vigorous with the mulching blade. And as he was going with it, I'm not really sure. He probably hit a couple of rocks, and in between filling up the gas or whatever, in between use, he didn't notice that the blade cracked. And what ended up happening is that at one moment he hit something, the blade, it broke off, the tooth broke off the blade, and it flung right into his shin. And he had a pretty gnarly piercing. It was actually kind of scary, you know. You never think about that. I never had that previously, and I was always thinking that, hey, these blades are, you know, indestructible, they're never gonna break, everything's gonna be fine. And then I see him, he shows me the pictures, he tells me the story, and I'm like, wow, you know, this is kind of a little more dangerous than you think it is. And then my personal experience, I was doing one project. I was mulching the blackberries. There was also some salmon berries, which are kind of a more woodier type plant. And as I was cutting them, there was some garbage on the ground. I think there was some kind of iron sink in one corner, and then another corner there was like old mattress box spring or something like that of the sorts, like something really old, probably from like the 40s or 30s, part of a bed frame. And I hit that once, the bed frame once, I hit the sink once, and then I hit a couple of rocks. And I remember I was revving it up to start cutting. I hit a little bit of a of that salmon berry, and that tooth just broke off. And immediately I could feel that the blade, the balance was just incredibly off. The entire trimmer started shaking, started vibrating like really rough. And I was like, oh man, I think I broke a tooth on the blade. And I look at the blade, and sure thing, the blade was broken. The tooth snapped right off, and thank God the tooth flew somewhere out of my direction, and it was also low RPMs. So, you know, it's one of those things that you never really consider, but with experience, I guess knowledge does come. And like most things, you know, even the most basic jobs, there's always some kind of risk, there's always some kind of danger. You know, you might be thinking, hey, I got a lot of experience, I might, you know, this is something simple. Even the simple things in life, they can be pretty dangerous. And so that's just kind of like a short story of experience I've had with the mulching. And I'm probably just gonna leave it at this note. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like. If you really liked it, please subscribe. And thank you for watching, and please enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. Have a good night. Have a good day. God bless. Bye.